Welcome to the Modern Pet Retailer. We have our third roundtable ever, and today we're talking about how to analyze data when it comes to killing products. We're going to talk about dead inventory, how to find it, how to analyze it, what data to look for, and overcome those instincts of I'll eventually sell this product or I have to hold on to this product because I paid good money for it because the good money is already gone. And if we can't recoup it fast, then it's just longer. It's a longer time you've had it gone. So today we're talking about different removal decisions and how to quickly offboard things that just aren't selling. And we're going to start with, since it's got different POS systems, everybody's going to have different use cases, different reporting styles that they can get out of their POS system. I think we should talk about what keywords to look for in your POS, what types of language you're looking for to find these different types of reports. Dave, from your experience and what we've used at Braxton's, what are some of those reports that you're looking for? What keywords are we looking for?
In general, I like very broad data because it gives me a way to assess it the way I want using typically Google Sheets, but any sort of spreadsheet or outside of the point of sale system comparison, because you get to compare very broad areas to individual items. So it gives you a lot of control. But in general, most point of sale systems will have a slow moving or non moving report. And you can set your parameters. That would simply be the length of time that you want to set or certain categories that you want to look at specifically. So as an example, we were talking about callers and leads last week. And suppose you just wanted to look at the caller and lead category. So you set that up. And then suppose you wanted to set aside a time that said 18 months. So you would simply look at the whole category and you'd say anything that has not sold in the most recent 18-month period. So that would give you all items in that particular category that are very stale, that just simply haven't moved in 18 months. So that's like a slow moving, non-moving. I think those are the keywords that you would find in most point of sale systems when they track your inventory sales is slow or non-moving. And our system does have that available, but you don't need those reports. You can also just, as long as you can get basic sales data, you can do it regardless of your point of sale system.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about what we do at Braxton's, what that spreadsheet looks like for us, but it is just very generic sales data. And then on top of our item information, we overlap those two reports and weed out the information that we're actually looking for. So even if your software doesn't have that specific reporting, like you said, you can always make something, especially in the age of AI. You can literally build it in seconds as long as you can articulate how you want to look at your information. Because I know that you've done a lot of the work on the back end of figuring out how we want to run that algorithm of deciding if we keep one or two things on the shelf of slow moving items, but things you necessarily need, all that's finessed in that algorithm. So as long as you can articulate, hey, I want to keep X amount of inventory on hand, and here's how I want you to look at this information that I'm going to provide you, you can build these types of reports in AI very simply with a minimal background in Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheets, or coding in general.
Yeah, I would simply comment on the build it yourself side. I totally agree. It doesn't take a computer science degree. You don't have to be familiar with software, but you want to get very clear with your thinking. So you need some sort of framework or structural thinking. Start with the output and really define a clear output that you want, especially if you're using AI. AI is like talking to a novice employee that doesn't have a whole lot of guidance. You can't just say, go do X and expect it to come out the way that you want. You have to be very clear with artificial intelligence in order to get a usable answer. So start within yourself. And these are the things that we're going to be talking through is what exactly do you want? Once you start to know what you want, then you can build it much more easily than just kind of starting from scratch. And the systems that I've built have taken 5, 6, 7 iterations of moving data, testing, trying again, add some stuff, take some stuff away. and it can take time. But once you get it nailed down, or once you understand what you're looking for, the results of the way that you make decisions, it just tenfold, 20-fold, 30-fold increase in the way that you look at your inventory and choose what's going to stay on the shelves and what's got to go.
Yeah, so I wanted to, since we talked the first week about how to freeze inventory and initially how you kill inventory, I won't cover SOPs, but I will share, if you're watching this playback, I will share that criteria for killing items, which we shared in the first week. But it's very important to have an SOP so that you know at what intervals you're going to check, how often you need to check on new products, how often you need to check on old products, and when they need to die. So I'll share that in the classroom with this video. But I want to share what our back end looks like real quick. So we have our two reports that we can pull from our POS system. This is our items breakdown. So this is every item we sell, any of them in our system that shows how much we have on hand, quantity on hand, our price point, a couple other details that are important. And then we help pull our sales report. So those are the same items, but it shows per month how many we sell on only a monthly basis, not a weekly basis breakdown. And after we have these two reports from our POS system, this is the page we work off of. So this is our master workbook. I currently have it organized for our highest profitable items, but we organize this in a way of just how we want to look at data. And you can build this to however you want to structure it, however you want to run your store. And you find that you might build one way and your manager might look at it a different way. So there's all kinds of different ways to manipulate this information to make it very useful. I personally just like to know what items that make our store the most money. I don't know why. It's just something I like to do. So like an example here is this particular bully stick bulk bag, 8-ounce bag. This is of March, like I said, makes us like $6,500 a year. That's for one item. So I kind of like just looking at that stuff. And then I know for the category, but that being a tough chew, natural bully stick type chew, what to compare it to when I'm looking at that lower end and what the higher end, like the potential could be. Because if I'm holding on to something that's just a slow mover in that category, and I know I have the possibility to find an item that can make this much money, I owe it to that department to try and improve it and remove that lower and try to find that next big win, like these particular bully sticks. Or I can analyze what might be causing this to be the best seller, whether it's the fact that it's a good value, it's an 8-ounce bag of 6-inch bully sticks, could be a good perceived value on the customer. So I can also make decisions on how to replicate this item instead of replacing the bad item with something else that's probably not going to do well either. So I like looking at the data this way when I'm making those types of kill decisions. And then my other favorite way to look at this, I will organize it by department and what our algorithm tells us to keep on shelf. So that is this. And I go from our best selling, so high to low, and by department, PC.
Just jump in real quick, Tiff. If you're familiar with Excel or Google Sheets, there's pivot tables and there's filters that you can also apply to recall your data more quickly or more easily. Right now, we're just running through a basic sort function to look at data by our product category PC, and then the working min, that is the suggested min that we carry based on most recent sales data.
Thank you. All right. So now I have it organized the way I want it to look. So this is our product code. This is our department. This is cat holistic dry food. That's how we categorize this one. And I can see immediately what my top performers are. And I can scroll down to what my low scoring performers are, all the way to these zeros. And if I have a 0 in the max, that means it's on the short list to go. Basically, I'm just waiting for that product to sell out. And at a certain point, I will make the decision to put it on sale, liquidate it. And after that if that does not work, then just discard it, donate it, all the good things. And we'll get into the how to make those decisions and timing those decisions in the next step. But I can look very quickly at all of my departments and see what my best selling one is. So if I bring a new cat dry food in, I usually only sell my best one and this is a 2-week turn time. I sell about 4 of the same SKU in a week. It's just not super high performing for us as a category here, but I can go down to my dry dog food section, which is D0, H0, whatever. So my top selling SKU, I sell about 15 of the same SKU in 2 weeks. And I can go down to the bottom and get a good idea of which ones are very much underperforming and which ones are just hanging on by a thread. And then all the ones that are on the short list to basically not exist anymore. Should gonna be quite a bit. I am working off a little bit of older data here, but these are all on the short list to be evaluated and start that elimination process essentially. And there's in food category, there are some kind of finessing. Like if you bring in a whole food line, naturally there's going to be things that just sell better and some things that don't. So those you can just kill. But I'm always hesitant to kill too much of a line because I want to give it a fair shake for a certain amount of time. So food, I evaluate a little bit differently. And again, we went over that at the first roundtable of killing products and what kind of leeway you give to foods and why we properly evaluate them, but we also give them a fair shake since it takes longer for foods to take off. But some of the higher margin items, things that we just need to have turning in high multiples every week, those are definitely things we check pretty regularly.
And looking at this, there's obviously a lot of information. And I just wanted to give a quick overview, kind of what TIFF is doing and what we're looking at from a data perspective. So step one, this particular spreadsheet right now is sorted based on department, which we talked about. And we also talked about using multiple departments to clearly define, let's say, comparing similar items, right? So if we are in currently the dog treat department, we can compare bully sticks to bully sticks. We can compare, but we're not going to compare dog biscuits to bully sticks. We just don't want to do that. This yellow column here is what we call the working column. This is a suggested minimum on hand based on the most recent sales data. That's typically the most current 3 months. And then the purple columns are actually an interesting column, which is called a gross margin return on investment. If you're familiar with that's great. If you're not, it is simply a ratio of the dollars that you're making um, over time. So it's turns and gross margin mixed together. And essentially the number there in this particular one, we're at 23. For every dollar I invest in inventory in this particular product, I'm making $23 over the year. And the next column over, DTS, is days to sell. We have a min, which is our current min, currently 44. Oh, you know what? Is that, oh, that's a Red Barnes, that is. And if we move from 44 to 29, it'll take us 18 days to sell 29 of that particular Red Barn bully barbell. And then Tiff had also mentioned the $12 net margins dollars. That is column O. And that particular product is earning us $2,400 over a 12-month period of time, the trailing 12 months. So just to give you a quick heads up of what TIFF is looking at, currently sorted as department and working, but you can look at department and total net earn. You can look at department and days to sell. You can look at gross margin return on investment. The way this particular sheet is set up, and there's a lot of reasons that we won't dive into deeply, but I just wanted to give you a heads up is you can make a spreadsheet for yourself that is either as simple or as robust as you want. We prefer more data because it allows you not only to compare to what is selling by sheer number unit volume, but also the dollars earned on a particular item over a set period of time. So we prefer that because if you're favoring things that just sell fast, you might not be optimizing your gross margin. And if you're optimizing just for sheer dollars, you might be losing opportunity on other products that will just sell well. So there's a balanced view to take with this. There's no perfect way to do it. You'll just want to organize the data in a way that's best for yourself at any given time. And Tiff is, again, just describing the way that we've built up over time that we like to look at it. And I'm sure Tiff will dive into there's different reasons that you might have different views over different times, right? If you're sitting with a rep, you might look at things differently. But this is like our most broad overview of the whole store.
Yeah, thank you. And I think a good example of what you were just talking about is these first two here. So these are our top by volume selling in this department. The red bar treat, the barbells, and then the fixers. But one we make 2,400 and the other one we make 600, just a lower cost item, but we sell just a lot of volume of. So that's definitely some nuanced things you're talking about. If you're only looking at this number and you're missing this number, I think you're like, this would tell me to replicate this, but I really only make that much on it. So it's nice to have balance, but you don't want to have something that you're making very minimal dollars on to be most of your category. You want to have a nice mix of, I sell 29 of these and I make a good profit on each one kind of thing. So you have your low cost items, you have your high cost items. And honestly, surprisingly, this is a very small item and I don't think it's that high of cost, but I think we order it in bulk. So maybe that's why our margins are just a little bit better on that one. But I digress. So bully stick items like top is going to be your high 20s, and then the lows are the ones that are up for the chopping block to be basically looking for ones that are replicating ones that are in this kind of group, whether it's low cost, so bones, different types of things in here. I like to use this a lot to just evaluate how to get those winners, how to keep cycling through winners instead of cycling through losers. If I go to kill, mm, I don't know, maybe this tripe particular item that's not selling well. This is a new item, but if it wasn't selling well, I wouldn't want to bring in more tripe or something like it. Just like it's clearly something's about it's not connecting with the customer. Don't bring it back. Go up to the top level and find something up there that might have a similarity, a different shape or different flex of some sort.
Yeah, and if I can interject again, because we're talking about both elimination and replacement, this is a perfect, again, if you're familiar with the term Pareto's law, 80/20, it's a distribution curve that all of nature abides by in different ratios. But we see this perfect distribution curve of the top 20% is probably going to be 80% of our sales, and the bottom 20% is just going to be a very minimal sale. So to Tiff's point is this is where what we had talked about before is reducing overlap, redundancy, cannibalism from product lines. But really, we are we want to lean towards what the customer has proven that they want. So as they've proven they don't want certain things that we're going to move out of the store and eliminate, it's okay now that we've gotten the inventory cleaned up to start to replicate the best products. So we're pushing our 80/20 distribution curve up higher and higher every time we do this, where you can never beat it. You're always going to have an 80/20. It's just going to look different over time as you focused on the best 20 over and over again and eliminate the bottom 20 over and over again. So this is where what we said before about redundancy and cannibalism, um, we don't want to cannibalize, but it's okay to be highly similar now that we very precisely know what our customers really want.
Yeah, perfect. And I think, like we said on the first roundtable, the goal is not to have a perfect system, it's to have a repeatable one. So having this information easy to view, easy to understand and comprehend, and having multiple people in the loop. So we have currently 3 to 4 people that can read this sheet within our store and kind of, they might not be making decisions, but they can understand why we might be making decisions, or they can get a good gauge of how we choose products, how we decide to kill products. And we have a process in which we look at it weekly to know and basically get that 80/20 into the most profitable 80% we physically can possibly have. Um, Yeah, so very important to come up with at least a cadence of some kind. I think when we first started looking at data this way, I think we were probably looking at it quarterly. And then it's like you improve the system, improve the process, you're looking at it monthly, and improve the system, you're looking at it. And then we've gotten to almost weekly, maybe bi weekly, depending on the week, um, and constantly improving our inventory. And this also prevents the fact that we don't have expired product on our shelves. We don't really run clearance tables on too many items. Usually it's brand new products that just happen to not work. Probably only run a clearance table twice a year consistently, right before the holidays and maybe mid-year. So these are all things that I usually when I go into other stores and I see them have basically a permanent clearance section. We don't have that problem here. And I think these are definitely the nuanced things we are doing and why we don't have that issue.
Yeah, if I can jump in real quick on the cadence, you talked about sort of simple metrics, and this sheet looks complex, but to your point, we're just taking two reports. So super easy from our point of sale system. We get a total inventory report, then we get a historic sales report, and then we compare. So to your point of cadence, because we've chosen a relatively simple path, we can do this weekly or bi-weekly in order to maintain an ideal inventory, enough on the shelf to never really run out so we don't lose sales from our customers looking for items, but never so much that we're wasting money with products sitting on the shelf. And if you're thinking to yourself, watching this, there's no way I'm going to do something like this every single week. I don't have the time to do it. This is why you build your system, and this is why you make your data that you select your data carefully so it's only the stuff you need. We're pulling two reports, we're compiling it, we're reviewing it. And when you do it like that, it becomes easier and easier to do on a fast cadence.
Yeah, so now that we've kind of talked about how we're going to pull this data, what kind of data we're going to look at, hopefully organizing it to use it in some constructive way, I want to show you guys our criteria for eliminating product and the three removal methods that we use. And this is a working diagram that we have so that, again, any of our staff members get the idea if they need to put something on sale or clear it out, what the proper path is to do that. All right, I'm going to let Dave walk through this, but the main key points I think I want to talk about is like, how do you choose between eliminating products? Or we've decided to eliminate product, but how do we properly get rid of it? Do we liquidate it? Do we just give it away? Or do we try to just slowly let it phase out? How do we make those decisions, Dave?
So yeah, I'm not an engineer or computer science, so my flowchart might not be perfect. Um, but I designed this early on. We already discussed COVID and just the pressure to fix things quickly and find those items that are just not selling. So here you can just see the areas that once we've determined through the reporting what we have to look at to eliminate, then we have to choose how to eliminate it. And one of my biggest concerns was once we decided to eliminate, I no longer wanted that product associated with our store. And I don't want our store to be associated with discount. So we select quality products, we sell them at a fair price, margins that we've decided on, and we're competitive with, you know, Chewy or at least local retail outlets. Um, so if we try to sell on sale products that we know are already not selling, there's actually risk to that from a customer perspective, what they understand our store to actually be. So I would actually look at the far right one first. Liquidate is if those items truly were not selling, we just made a bad choice. There's no alignment for our customer with the product line. Maybe it was priced too high. Maybe it was just not quality. Whatever the reasons are, we may or may not ever know what those reasons are. But you really have to ask yourself, since we understand now that it's not selling, our customers do not want it, do we want it to be associated with our store? And if not, liquidate is actually the best option. And there's a handful of ways to liquidate it. If you have a friend or family member who wants to sell things online, you don't do it under your store brand. You just have somebody eBaying the stuff out the back door. Okay, if you can make $5 and recover that money, that's great. Um, what we tend to do for speed purposes uh, is actually just donate. And if we can't donate it, if the rescues don't even want it, then it basically just goes in the trash. So we'll give it to employees, we'll donate it to rescues, or we'll actually throw it out. So if there are products that sold moderately well, but just really don't, they just don't stand up to the best products in your store, it's okay to throw a little bit of a discount table, some area in the store, just continue to move them out because you're not concerned about the alignment of the product with the customer in their mind. Um, but you want to accelerate them off the shelf and out of the store. And it allows you to recover a little bit of money. How you do that is up to you, but you have to decide. We already know it's not of our customers' interest. It's not selling as well as other stuff. What's the discount amount that perks enough interest that your customers take another look at it? You do not want to do this on shelf. You do not want to do this on an end cap. You want to do it as a very clearly designated end of life. We're getting rid of this product. That's why we're discounting it. It's probably going to be between 20 and 50%. You want to do it fast, do 50%. You want to ramp it up, start at 20, go to 25, 30, go to 50, move it out. I like speed over dollars because my dollars are earned by the products that we have on the shelf that sell well. They're not earned at the discount table. So just remember, you already paid for it. The money's already gone. If you can recover a little bit, great, but you're not going to make your business profitable selling stuff off of a discount table. So move it out as quickly as possible. So those really are the three ways that we look at it. So it's elimination, liquidation, or disposal. And um, again, we just look at the reason and how the product suits our current customer. We really want to note maybe why it didn't sell, at least in our mind. Look how it compares to the other products on the shelf. Look at the packaging, look at the price comparison. And you do this because you don't want to make that mistake again. When you see another product at a show and you're super excited about it, you think, oh, remember 18 months ago, we had this product that just sat on the shelf? Bad packaging. Customers weren't interested. Too pricey for the category. Didn't fit our customer needs. Whatever that is, you have to have an institutional memory. You have to understand that we just don't want to repeat that purchase. So that's really the down and dirty on this flow chart is you can just walk yourself through it. And Tiff, you're going to put this in the classroom, right? So people can look at it a little more in depth. I think it's relatively intuitive as you read through the different boxes. But I just wanted to indicate that my favor, the way I lean towards it, the way I look at the overview of this is I tend to lean towards disposal or fast elimination over liquidation. I don't believe the dollars earned on that are worth the time and customer understanding of how our store operates.
Yeah. And I also noticed that since I'm the one that kind of sets up the discount table, the two times a year we do it, certain types of items, like if it wasn't selling, they're not going to sell if they're at a discount either. So it's just better to move them, get out of the way. Foods, if people were not buying the food at the regular price, they're probably not going to buy it at 50% off. You'll have some buy it, like maybe value people. But anytime I put food or like a supplement of any kind, it usually does not sell well on a discount table. So those are the ones I quickly either discuss with the rescue to kind of get offload them because they always need stuff like that. They always need food. They always need supplements for different types of dogs or cats. But I do find that I can always move toys and treats no matter what. So those are just quick and easy ones, especially since they're in those high turn departments. It makes it very easy to kill them if I need to in a quick fashion because I feel like people will still buy a discounted Christmas toy in the middle of July if I had it. So, which I don't, but if I did.
That's a just quick interjection there is that's a really good point is seasonal items is you have to decide if you overbought and you have seasonal items left over, what's more valuable, the storage space or just liquidating that and getting some of your cash back? So it's okay to have talked about a discount table mostly leading up to Christmas. We have higher customer flow. We have people looking for just quick one-off toys or treats that are on the discount table. But you can also think about a post-holiday. Christmas is our biggest season. I imagine it's most retailers' biggest season. Hey, we start our discount table on December 26th. If we have any excess, which again, we focused on not having any excess Christmas toys. But if we were to hit it quick, burn them through, start over, get your cash back, look forward to January.
Also, I feel like harnesses and odd shape size wearables, just cannot get rid of them on discount table. They're like, it didn't sell on the rack. And that's probably because there's just not that shopper around right now. So those are also a hard one for me to get moving. Just why it's more important to make sure that you bring in as core items as possible, as light item, trying to replicate those good sellers as best you can because they're a pain to move.
Yeah, that's funny because no matter how attractive a collar is, a triple XS, the tiniest 8-inch collar, how many are you going to sell? Sure. Maybe if you have toy chihuahuas around your area, but maybe you sell tons of them. In our case, like that double X extra small collar, no matter how attractive it is, it's just not going to sell. So that is on the buying side. You're absolutely right, Tiff.
I think one thing we didn't talk about before we went through that elimination process is making sure that we give things a fair shake before we put them on the chopping block, which as long as you have a system at which you decide at the point of buying that we're going to put this on an end cap with an introductory sale, education process or something for the customer, we want to make sure that we've done it at least some justice. We want to make sure that we at least try to work ahead of recouping the dollars before we try to decide that we're going to liquidate the dollars.
Actually, yeah, why don't you look at that? I don't know if you want to get in depth on that point, but I think you've created a pretty good system around different departments have different time values of what we'd expect from product flow and customer engagement. The higher the volume, the less time it needs, and the slower the total engagement, the more time it needs. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
So a food, we give a lot bigger grace period because it takes a lot longer for people to find out that you have the food. It's a lot bigger investment. So we definitely give food a lot longer ramp. But like you said, those high turn departments like bully stick type products, the consumables, the toys, the treats. If I'm selling 20 of my best thing in 2 weeks, I want to try and replicate that as many times as I can. Pretty much all of our new products they come in on an end cap. We have 6 end caps, I do believe, to feature it, and we prioritize those by visibility. So we have one that's right when you walk in the door. It has a big, beautiful TV. We usually see a 60% increase in those products that go on that end cap versus a standard end cap. So we put a lot of value on that one if we're trying to really make something happen, or it's a high education type item. For example, we have the tick mitt that I think a lot of people are starting to familiarize themselves with. I think a video goes a long way with a product like that, just seeing it work on a dog. So we sold a lot of that particular item and we're getting into that season. New treats that might have functional properties in them that might need a little bit more education of like why you would choose this goat treat over something else. So that TV end cap does really well. So if there's a product that's on that particular end cap and it's still not selling, it would have a shorter runway than most things. We pretty much walked the customer to that and showed them the value and they still didn't see it. They still didn't connect with it for whatever reason. So that's how we look at it is basically what end cap were they featured on? How long were they featured? Did they have an in-store promotion? Are they in a high turn department? So food, we typically have a grace period of up to 2 years, especially with kibble products. You're investing anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. So you want to give it the proper runway. You want to give it the proper visibility and education to customers. Consumables, we stick 3 to 6 months. And then others like wearables or equipment, like 6 to 8 months, as long as it's not a necessity item. Different types of shampoos, stuff like that would lean towards the 8-month mark on those.
having a defined timeline gives us, again, that using the word cadence, that process to review. So it's not just throw it on, forget it. It's let's measure this, and we know not precisely, but at least roughly where it should be in a set series of time. Again, consumables, high volume, 3 to 4 months. We're going to know if it's going to earn a spot on the shelf. Things that are a little unique or just not as fast departments, sure, that 6 to 8 month mark, we're giving it a fair shake. If it's not selling by 8 months and similar products are selling a couple times a month, it's really, we have to decide. And then same as you said, foods, 2 years sounds like a very long time, but it, this is why we had talked about, we really like to have food companies that are supporting their own product, getting out there in front of customers, doing their marketing, driving traffic into our store to specifically ask for their products. Because otherwise, they have to be our customer. They have to come in the store. They have to decide that they need to switch from something else. They have to be educated why they're going to pick that brand. This is something that if we trust the food, we trust the company, we've decided to take it on, it becomes a long education process and sales process for it to be able to grow into a reasonable brand. At your point of 2 years, that's just like the starting point. That's the bottom threshold. In order for it to become a top brand, that's going to be years and years. It's a really good point that different categories, different velocities require different check back periods, and just building it into your calendar, building it into your SOP, building it into your review period. We always want to get that shelf space back. Those end caps are not permanent residents for products. They are rotational, they're promotional, and they should be used that way. So introduce, assess, move it to the shelf. Or, of course, if it doesn't earn the spot on the shelf, move it out. And that's just so important because we don't waste time. We don't waste 2 years if a product's just not selling to our customers. Check back with it 3 months, 6 months, a year. Check it against equivalent products that are already in your store. Make the decision, move it out or move it to the shelf.
And I've tried to be better in case the food is giving the reps when they bring us a new food to give them kind of what a rough expectation of what we expect. So the last kibble brand we brought on was Square Pet and Go Pet Curated Solutions. And I articulated very clearly I'll use Go as the example, what our top performers did when they first came in, what our low, and gave them a nice average of in Q1 of you being here. I want you to do X dollars out the door. I want to see like an 80% SKU turn type thing. I gave them very specific instructions for two reasons. One, that way they kind of sets the tone of, oh, I'm not hitting this. I need to either get in there or I need to be able to offer them something to help push that along. It gives them more of a tangible goal to work towards instead of just saying, I want to sell as much food of yours as I can. What does that even mean? And then second point to that is giving us clear benchmarks. So as we get on that 2-year mark, we have each individual quarter planned out. If we really need to be here for this to be deemed successful in 2 years. So it gives both the rep and us clear information of what by category that should be doing. I think the end point and the kind of closing topic, I would just want to clarify that removal is not failure. It's not failure on the brand's fault. It's not a failure on your fault. It's just business, essentially. Holding the wrong product too long is a failure. The stores that grow are the ones that get comfortable with making the cut. And it can be very hard to get into that mindset if you're not data driven in the first place. And you brought it in because you thought it was going to do well. You thought it was going to connect with your customers, and it's an emotional attachment. You have to try and let that go and just operate off the data, because your bottom line at the end of the day, we got to get that 80% as profitable as possible. Do you think we connected on everything? Is there any other topics you want to cover in here?
No, I think we made the decision about cutting stuff and clearing stuff, and we kind of looked at data and how to assess different product lines, and really this elimination. Think of it also as like a renewal, which just sounds like, all right, really, we're just cutting and killing products, and we're throwing them in the dumpster. It doesn't sound like renewal. But when you objectively take a step back out of your day to day, look at the data objectively as if you're walking in from the outside. It's so much easier to walk into somebody else's store and say, oh, I see the problems that are going on, but it's much more difficult for us to reflect on our own store. So this both has to do with the inventory that we're talking about, but also your store operations as a whole is how do you get fresh eyes? How do you get outside eyes? And it might literally be invite a friend in who's not as familiar with your store, maybe another store owner, maybe another retail store owner that's not in the industry, and just ask them to be sincere and give you feedback. Maybe you let something get dirty and it needs to be painted. Maybe your shelf is broken and you didn't fix it. Maybe so operationally, there are things that you should be doing. And we can look at inventory pretty much the same way from two directions. What's broken? Let's focus on fixing it. So what's not selling? What do we have to do? The truth is, if our customers don't want it and they've seen it 3 and 4 and 5 times because they've been in the store, they're not going to want it. It's just, they're not. And then if they want it at 20% off, they're not going to want it when it goes back to full cost. So it's not a product that's going to sell. To Tiff's point, maybe you made a mistake, but that's absolutely okay. Because the other side of what I wanted to say is once we use data to understand the core products that our customers are telling us that they want, this is the top 80%, not just the top 20%, but those things that sell super well in the top 20%, but also the core products that just bring the customer back over and over again. These are the non-exciting things. These are the foods. These are the staple items that they just come in, they have to buy. We've talked a lot about eliminating and moving those products on the bottom 20%, but the renewal aspect is interesting. It's okay to make those mistakes. We don't want to change our store. We don't want to change the core over and over again. That's going to be confusing to our customer. We don't want to start recommending this food and that food and different things all the time. That's confusing to the customer. That doesn't build a great rapport with the customer. But it's exciting to bring in new products that are slightly lower threshold, right? New toys, new treats, new consumables. And those are the areas that it becomes easier to focus on, that you can give the store novelty intelligently. And what I mean is fresh and new, but similar to your best sellers. So we use the data. We know what the core is. We know what our customers come into the store for day in and day out. We don't touch those. We kill the bottom percent and we take the shelf space and the cash that was allocated to those, and we do some fun shopping. And we want to shop for those things that reside in the top 20%, the most exciting things, the highest velocity things, those things that are catching the customer's eye. And we know it because the data's there. That's really my summary is it's not just about elimination. It's about freeing you from the constraints of bad products. Kill them, move them out of the store, get them off the shelves. Don't worry about them anymore. Now you've got a little bit of bandwidth, a little bit of shelf space and floor space to go find those products that most similarly match, without being redundant or cannibalistic, the best products. Maybe it's a new season, a new color pattern, and a new toy brand, something that just fits a nice little niche that's similar to your best sellers. Boom, you got a nice bright end cap. Customers are excited about it because they're buying other similar stuff. Now you figure out maybe you bought, and this is one of the things, Tiff, I appreciate about your review period is maybe you bring a toy line in that has 10 products. Not all 10 are going to be best sellers. Maybe you're going to only take 5 that are going to make it from the end cap to the shelf. They were the cutest ones. They were the best value ones, whatever it is that satisfies the customer's interest. So you quickly eliminate 5 of them and you only bring 5 into regular purchase cycle. And I think that's great because it gives us the ability to have a small percentage of novelty to engage our customer over and over again without risking tons of investment or tons of shelf space. We just kill it before it even goes to the shelf. And we only pick the cream of the crop that's going to stay in the store over a long period of time.
Yeah, part of me likes that part of when you bring in those 10 toys and 5 do well and you're like trying to figure out and get inside the head of the consumer. You'd be like, why did these 5 do well? And then you take that, what you assumptions essentially, and then some of the data you have, whether it's a tough toy or something, to go find the next 5 winners based off of what you think people liked at that. So I like the gamification of that. It's fun and try to think psychologically of what the consumer was thinking because they don't always give you the feedback of this is why I chose this toy over this one. But I do love the idea you suggested of just bringing in a friend or somebody that might be in some other business or some other form. I definitely think you would want somebody that is familiar with retail or at least selling types of products, like not necessarily a service based business, to come in and look through your store because they are going to be looking with the same kind of eyes, but not the same lens. I feel like when we go into other pet stores, we have our perception of what does well at our store and we have our bias, whereas somebody outside the industry wouldn't have those biases. They just know you need to have a good presentation of products. You need to have X, Y, and Z to have a good representation in your store. So I love that idea of bringing in like a third party, somebody you trust that will be honest with you to evaluate what they see. And I'm glad you brought up when we bring in the next round of toys, we need to bring in that next round because the final topic of this inventory topic next week, we're going to be discussing how to evaluate new deals. We're going to be talking about when you go to shows, how to properly look through those show books to bring in those best sellers, find actually what the good deals are because everything is represented as a good deal, but that's not always the case. And define how to purchase products when those reps come into your store with those ISO deals. Again, they look good on paper, but are they actually a good investment for you? Or do you need to do a little bit of negotiation to make it a better fit for your store? So that's going to be next week's topic.
As a primer for next week, just because it popped into my mind from your discussion is, do you remember, and I'll keep the details vague enough, that contact that we made, someone who went to a show and brought on a product, was a wonderful deal, but they brought on 1 year's worth of product. And we were both like, because we run lead inventory here, um, that would be a complete no-no. It just so many things wrong with that. And I think we were both taken aback by the idea that a deal could be anywhere near that good that you needed 1 year's worth of inventory. And unfortunately, that person also struggled, I think, with the sheer volume of storage and the sheer dollar volume, where they were actually immediately trying to turn around and sell it. So maybe a good deal to smaller volume, not a good deal when it puts you in a financial pinch and a storage pinch. Not a good deal. So we'll go over that next week. But that just jumped into my mind when you were foreshadowing of what's to come.
Yeah, I feel like that is a really good example. And I felt so bad for them because I don't know if it was on the owner or their manager who was responsible for that. But I think when we get into that topic, we're going to discuss how to evaluate your square footage and how much each square footage of your store is worth. So when you bring in 150 bags of dog food and it takes up X amount of space, and then also the financial cost of possibly damaging that product, moving that product 3 or 4 times. We're going to talk about all those things that you have to factor in when you see that 35% off this food. You have to eat in that you have to store it. You have to eat in that you're probably going to lose a little bit in the movement. All of the different things that kind of go against it kind of help understand that 35% is not really 35%, depending on how much you're actually buying. So that's all going to be covered next week. Dave, I appreciate your time as always. And thank you so much.